Hey everyone, what's up? Forhago here. So here, I'm going to be doing a little tutorial, basics of some Riven tech. So I would say this is for mainly new players and maybe intermediate level players, maybe like gold and below. I'm not a Riven master or anything like that, and I don't play Riven too often, but I did play her for a bit and spent a lot of time learning her. And I think there's a lot of things that I would have liked to know, known when I was learning her. And so let's just get right to it. This is more for newer players. Like I said, we're going to be going through a few basic things. We're not going to talk about Riven builds because that's always changing or anything like that. I'm not going to talk about matchup specific things. I'm more going to tell you about the basic combos of Riven, some animation canceling, and some tips and tricks that maybe even intermediate Riven players will not know. So let's get started. So the first thing we have to know, and I'm sure you probably know, I probably know, is that Riven's Q works really well with her auto attacks. And what I mean by that is that her passive means that you deal more damage when you weave an auto attack between her Q. So here's an enemy dummy. So you can look at it, enemy dummy. Actually, let's spawn another one here in the center here. So basically, when you only just use Q, let's say, the amount of damage you get is maximized if you weave auto attacks in. So let's say you Q auto Q auto Q, right? That's generally the combo that you want to do. No matter what spell you use, it's not just Riven's Q. Like, let's say like. Generally, you want to weave your attacks in between, your auto attacks in between your spells to maximize damage. So that's really basic. I'm sure all of you guys know that. So I want to talk about Riven's Q a little bit because this is a little weird. And a lot of people who don't play Riven don't actually know this. But what happens with Riven's Q is that let's say I'm facing right here. I'm facing towards the right, and I have an enemy here. Maybe it's a minion or an enemy champion. If I press Let's say I press Q, let's say like my mouse is here behind Riven and I press Q. A lot of people, new players, would expect Riven to be, her Q would be towards my mouse here. It's kind of like Nidalee's jump, let's say, or Riven's E, but her Q doesn't actually work like that. As you can see, once I press Q when my mouse is here, I'm actually still moving towards the right where Riven is facing. So this can throw off a lot of newer players simply because they expect it to just go towards where the cursor is. And like this is just something that you have to get used to. It takes a while to get used to. But essentially, whichever direction you want to go, you want to right click in the direction and face towards it before you actually change directions. The only exception to this is, let's say I'm facing to the right here. If I put my cursor onto something like a targetable enemy, so let's say a minion or a champion, then I turn around. You can see I turn around here without right clicking. So when you're targeting something, then your Q actually faces towards them. So if you're expecting your Q Riven to go towards where your Q is, you really want to make sure that your cursor is on a targetable enemy. This can be useful sometimes. What a lot of Riven players do when they jump over walls is on the third Q you would walk next to the wall and you can jump over, right? But sometimes it's a little difficult because maybe you're going along this wall and it's really hard to start facing to the right here. What you can do is you can put your cursor here, so you can actually target something with a cursor and Riven will automatically turn and face and jump over the wall. So it actually makes wall jumping much easier. When you're chasing enemies on the other side of the wall, it's actually really simple to do. So that's something that I think a lot of new Riven players don't really try to do, but it's very, very useful. And there's a few like tips and tricks that you can do with Riven's Q that would help you during laning phase. So for example, let's say you're playing against a losing matchup. Let's say you're playing as Renekton, right? Let's say this minion here is like let's say a cannon minion that you need to get, and the Renekton is kind of pressuring you. So what you can do without using her E is you can collect it easily by pressing Q, hitting it, right clicking backwards, and then Q away. So it's actually really quick. So again, it's like the chance of Renekton being able to punish you is a little bit, it's very little, essentially. So you can Q, and you can use Q to dodge, but you have to make sure you have the right click first. So keep in mind, you always have the right click backwards, or in any direction that you want to go to. Obviously that's not the case with the E. The last thing I want to talk about for Riven's Q is a lot of new Riven players, what they do is when they're fighting enemies, so let's say they're fighting enemy champion, let's say this Scuttle is an enemy champion running away, right? When they're chasing it, they often just put their mouse on top of them and then press Q to chase, like essentially do damage while they're chasing, right? You can see like while I'm auto-attacking this minion here, hold on. So let's say I'm auto-attacking this minion, and you know, when I press Q here, I'm actually not moving forwards. You can see I'm not really moving forwards, and I'm always in front of them. And so it's actually not very good for chasing. What you actually want to do is when you're chasing, like here, you can put your cursor somewhere else, just not target anything, and you can Q and you'll actually go through your target. And so that's much better for chasing. Take the Scuttle for example, right? Like let's say the Scuttle is a champion that's trying to run away. Instead of targeting it, you want to go through the Scuttle, so you can kind of follow the champion as you're going. You don't want to put your cursor on it because then you're not going forwards. Let's talk about animation canceling and some basic combos with Riven now. There's a couple of ones, you know, there's a basic, right? So we all know the auto, Q auto, Q auto, Q auto, you know, combo. It's very basic, but there's a lot of different things you can do, and I think what makes Riven so fun is that you can be very creative with your combos. You can switch up the order. There's different ways to animation cancel. We know some, I'm sure you know some basic animation cancels with Riven. So for example, like the really basic ones like auto Q, you cancel your auto attack animation, auto W or auto Q. Those are very basic. You can cancel it. You can do auto E like that when you're going for minions, and you have to be very precise with the timing. Otherwise, you don't want to cancel your auto attack. And then there's some other basic ones. I'm sure everyone knows, like EQ is cancelable, QE is cancelable. You know, you can do QR, things like that. But I think what a lot of people don't really realize is W is not as easy to animation cancel compared to, you know, Q and E. So anything can pretty much cancel Q and E. You can lay over any other spell on top of it. But it's a little different with W. You can do EQ, you can do QE, but you actually can't start off with W. So let's say I'm doing WQ, right? Do you see how slow that is? It's actually really slow. You're not actually canceling the W. You're waiting for W to end before you actually attack. And there's actually one way to there's mainly one way to really go around that, is that you use your E first. And this is really weird because when you use E, you have probably about like I'll say a 1 second window before you can use WQ and cancel it. So here's what I mean. So this is what it looks like if it's just WQ. Right? Very slow. With E first, you see that? It's much quicker. Oh, some moonwalking occurred there. But you kind of get the gist of it. You want to use E first. So if you want some burst damage with the Riven, you can always like EWQ, and that's kind of the start of your combo essentially. You know, if you want to just use EW, you can cancel your E and have your W animation be during the duration of your E, so then essentially it doesn't slow you down. And you know, I use this in laning phase sometimes. Like let's say this is a minion that I want to get, but it's like, you know, really dangerous, and I want to collect it as quickly as possible and get away from the enemy top laner. I can literally walk up to the minion. Like let's say let's say I walk up like here, I can EW away. And you can, so when the minion's about to die, you walk up to it, boom, and you're out of there basically. And you have a shield, so you know, any harass would be, you'll be able to absorb with your shield. And if your Q is down, then this is very useful for that. So once again, you can EW. You have to do it really quickly though. So yeah, that's kind of the properties of W. A lot of the burst damage, you can, if you layer W on top of Q, you can get nice burst damage. And then obviously you can add anything in between. So like you can, let's say do EAT Alt WQ, right? Or you can do like, you can add a lot of things. You can even add in an auto attack. You can add in like an alt and an auto attack. You can even add in a flash in between. So for example, like I can like I can do like E flash WQ for example, or like E alt flash WQ, E alt flash WQ, and then you're essentially onto them immediately. And I'd say if there's any combo that you want to really learn with Riven, I think that's kind of the more important one in my opinion. Just learn E alt flash WQ. So let's say like you're laning and you manage to get some good trades in, and they're really low, right? Let's say they have like 300, 400 HP left. Then you can easily surprise your opponent, and there's really nothing they can do. You just, let's say like this is the opponent and they're really low, you just kind of fuck them up, and they're basically instantly dead. You can also add an auto attack in. I kind of messed that up, but you kind of get the gist of it. But you can weave in a lot of things, and it really takes practice. I can't really do it to perfection. I messed up quite a bit too. Yeah, I think that's the main combo if you want to just surprise them and kill them instantly. And even if they have flash, usually they can't react fast enough to this. The last thing is I want to talk about is the basic Riven trade. So like the most basic Riven trade you can do in laning phase. Let's say this is opponent. It's really simple. You just Q onto them, W, auto attack, and then E back. So that's kind of, the step-by-step process of it. That's kind of the step. And you want to cancel your auto attack as quickly as possible because you want to minimize the time that they can use to trade, right? Trade back to you. So you go, and then you can add in extra Q. I like adding extra Q against someone like Darius because it actually gets you out of his hook range. Like if this was Darius, one of the things I really like doing is harass, and that actually gets out of his hook range, and it looks like you're outplaying him. As Riven, you have to kind of always outplay your opponent. If you don't outplay them, then you lose like 90% of the matchups. Yeah, so that's mainly my Riven tutorial. I went through a couple things, mainly the properties of a Q, how to jump over walls, things like that. I'm sure there's lots of walls you can jump over, and corners as well. And then I went through some basic animation canceling. And yeah, you basically, Riven excels at really short trades at the top lane. And she can be extremely good at level 1 as well, and level 3. And at level 6 you have tons of kill pressure, so that's kind of where you want to try to kill your opponent, like after level 6. Oh, and one last thing I want to talk about her Q, I actually forgot to mention this, is that your Q cooldown actually starts at the beginning of your Q. So I put auto cooldown refresh to off, so you can kind of see if I'm fighting this opponent, right, and I go in, you can see I still have a long time before my Q comes back up. I think a lot of people overestimate how short Riven's Q is, but it's actually pretty long, especially if you haven't maxed it yet. So what you want to do is, like I said earlier, the cooldown starts on her first Q. So let's say I'm looking to really fight. I can charge up my Q. You can see this bar, charge at the last second, and then let's say I go in. Oh, whoops, I messed that up. But let's try that again. You can start charging a Q from the beginning, and you want to hold it as long as possible. You can see the bar here, and then at the last moment you release the third Q, and then go in. And then you can see my Q is almost up already, and then you can fight again. And then if you have enough cooldown, it actually will be up instantly. You can do your third Q, and then your Q will be up again. So that's something you want to watch out for. Like let's say you're fighting a team, and let's say you're dancing here at near the Baron area. Let's say it's like a ramp but in the Baron area, and you're just waiting for engage, right? What a lot of Rivens will do, especially if they have flash, is you can kind of see them charging their Qs. Like they're just dancing, and then they just kind of charge a Q. And that's because they're waiting to go in, essentially. And so as a Riven player, a lot of people will be watching out for that. So what you want to do is you actually want to kind of charge your Q outside of their sight, their line of sight. Like if they're here, you can charge it, and then they won't know that you're on their third Q, and then you can go in, basically, essentially. So those are just small little tricks that you can do as Riven. But I hope this was useful. Riven's very flashy, that's why I love playing her, but she's not the strongest right now, and it kind of feels bad because if you don't play correctly, you kind of just always lose lane. So you really have to be careful with Riven a lot of times because you're very susceptible to a lot of matchups. A ton of matchups you basically just lose, and it can be pretty difficult, like unless you understand the matchup really well. So yeah, and to you guys who are thinking about how to play against Riven, the main thing about her laning phase is that her cooldowns are really high. So you just want to play around those cooldowns. So you can see my E is 11 whole seconds. This is a long time. Like look how long, like in lane phase, that's a real long time for just like a small shield that you get. And it only lasts 1.5 seconds. And if she blows her Q instantly like this, you should just attack her because she does not have her Q for another 10 seconds. So just watch out for like Riven's cooldowns mainly, I'd say, because a lot of Rivens, they might go like, let's say there's an enemy, it's like, oh, I want to engage, right? And then now look how long they have to wait before their cooldowns come back up, right? And like look, it's still going down, and how much fighting would have happened at top lane? Like you can literally have 10 seconds just to mess up, like just to fuck her up essentially. So as a Riven like player during laning phase and just in general, you just have to be mindful of your cooldowns. Like in laning phase, like let's say like I use something and get away, right? And then like I'm all on cooldown, like you need to back off. Like you have all this time on your cooldown they have to wait for. You just need to back off. You just don't win at all. And then when your cooldowns come back up, then you can come back and start threatening again, because you don't want to give them the opportunity to have a good trade against you, right? And then you can use you can do your trade again, and then you're all on cooldown again, so you have to wait again. But a lot of what Riven has to do in laning phase is kind of just weaving in and out and like playing around your cooldowns essentially. So yeah, I kind of kept going on a tangent, so I hope this guide was useful. Maybe I'll do it again with another champion, or I could do it with another lane specifically. Like let's say playing ADCs in general, things to know about around the map, how to ward, things like that. And yeah, thank you for watching.